My name is Carl T. Lloyd, and I am the Commandant of Cadets of the Paul R. Brown Leadership Academy.
How did Paul R. Brown Leadership Academy come to existence?
I worked in private military school education for 20 years, and and I always believed in that system. That sometimes a cadet or a kid needed to be put into a positive environment with like-minded kids, and that would help guide him in the right direction, he or she in the right direction. And I just noticed that over the years that kids whose parents were wealthy enough to pay somebody like me at one of the 26 military schools, they had a distinct advantage. They could get them out of that bad environment. They could put them with people and their own peers that wouldn't ridicule and scorn them for making the right decisions, and that where if they excelled academically, they wouldn't be looked at as a nerd or you're just trying to suck up and things like that. And I always thought, if you had one of these here in Bladen County, it could help so many kids. And so I always, from the first year I did it, I always told my coworkers, I said, one day I'm going to do one of these, and I'm going to do it in my hometown. And so in 2012, when North Carolina, at one point there could only be 100 charter schools in the state of North Carolina by law. And when North Carolina changed the charter school law, I still remember one of my former cadets called me and was like, "Have you heard?" And I was like, "No." He was like, "They just lifted the cap on charter schools." And so I went to work for the next year getting the charter ready. And we applied for the charter here at the academy, and we were blessed to receive it. And so that's how it came about. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to, for me, it was, you guys say Mr. Ford, but he'll always be Sergeant Ford to us, because he made a difference with so many of us. So
That's what I was going to ask you. So you're from Bladen County. Who influenced you here whenever you?
Well, I was fortunate enough, even though kids here in Elizabethtown will say different, but I was fortunate and blessed enough to go to East Arcadia. And East Arcadia at the time was K through 9. And so you literally grew up at the school. By the time you were a ninth grader, it was basically like we had 2 senior years, one down there and then one up here. But because our teachers were always, we didn't have a lot of turnover. I can remember being a ninth grader and my kindergarten teacher being at my graduation for ninth grade. Again, Bladen County Schools, we had some great teachers. Mr. Richardson, Mr. Nick, or Mr. Nichols, and then, Miss Taylor, who just passed away. I was telling someone that 11th and 12th grade English was so great with her because she was the epitome of a Southern lady. She could never, even if you were having a bad day and you tried her, she could still find something positive in you. And I remember when kids would try to cross that line, and she said, "A gentleman doesn't talk that way. A lady doesn't act that way." And so I had great teachers at East Bladen, but I would say the most influential was Sergeant Foy, who at the time was the JROTC instructor. And he basically instilled in us that we were a representation of him when in and out of JROTC. When we walked out of there, we were representing him and what he was trying to teach us. I would say that it hands down it would be he was the teacher that had the most impact on me in my life.
Thank you for sharing that. Now we find ourselves in unprecedented times. How has the coronavirus affected the academy?
A lot of people have wondered how coronavirus has affected the school. One of the things how it's affected the school is a lot of people are upset with us at times because we can't do the things that we used to do as far as having rentals and having people on campus. And so, unfortunately, people think that we're just being ugly about it, that we're saying, no, you can't have that here anymore. It's not that. We want the academy to be a shining little light in the community. But until everything is over with the virus, we have to make sure that we're complying with the state's guidelines. And so when people call and are upset because we're not, we won't do a rental anymore, we won't allow them to have functions, it's not that we don't want to. As soon as this is over with and we're all back to normal and not the new normal, we'll be that place again. But we just ask people to bear with us during this time off. Not that we don't want to, it's just we can't. So
How has the COVID-19 affected your students?
when I talk to them, when I go and see them, even the ones that used to say, "Oh, I can't stand this. I don't want to be here." When I see them, they say, "I can't wait to go back to school," because one of the things about it is kids need that socialization time. They need that time to be with other kids. And as bad as I get on their nerves sometimes, they've told me they just miss being here. And I'm sure that's with all the schools. I think they're just ready to be kids again. And then I hate for our seniors. They were here as sixth graders and they didn't get a military ball. They didn't, and their graduation is going to be very different than what they're used to. It's affected them all. And this is what I've told them, we haven't suffered a real loss. We've suffered inconveniences, and so I hope it stays that way. So when we meet with them each week, we tell them, do what you're supposed to, stay where you're supposed to, and socially distance. So.